The next tutorial that I'm going to teach you is based off the previous one, the black and white conversion technique. So if you haven't seen that one yet, please watch it first. The thing is, I prefer to finish all my photographs in color, but I'm still a big fan of the tonal range of black and white images. There's something about that nice, contrasty, metallic look that I like, but I think the majority of the impact of my work comes from it being in color. So I came up with this technique to get the best of both worlds in one photograph. So this is an image from the south of Ethiopia again. It was taken during a funeral procession of the Bodhi tribe. We were driving our Jeep along the road into the jungle, and we saw ahead of us a bunch of women chanting. So we got out of the car to investigate and check it out. And there are a bunch of different Bodhi tribe clans in the same field together, and usually they live a little bit separate and a little bit more spread out from each other. But this day they were all together mourning the death of a loved one. So we walked around, checked it out, investigated, asked some questions a bit. I wrote a little bit things down in my journal, and then I started taking photographs. So I asked this man for a photograph. He said sure, and he posed proudly for me underneath my softbox. Which I explain how I use studio lighting out in the bush in the lighting theory section of this tutorial. But I went to Ethiopia right after the rainy season, so I really lucked out with the interesting cloud shapes, and during my trip I also got a lot of storm clouds, which I really like the moodiness of. But anyway, I want to get the contrast range of a black and white image, but add color later. So the first thing I'm going to do is the same technique that I taught you before. I'm going to turn this image into black and white with the channel mixer, just because I'm not too picky about the sky. So I'm just going to kind of play around with the channel mixer here and click monochrome so it's in black and white. And I'm going to turn the red down and the green up just to get a little bit more contrasty. Maybe the red down even further and the blue up. Now I notice as I turn the red down and the blue up, I'm losing all those great clouds in the sky. So I think for this I'm going to have to try to keep that red up and just try to find a good kind of medium point where I'm happy with the contrast of the image but still have the sky in there. If I did go into the black and white menu and use that technique instead, I could probably control the image a little bit better, but for the sake of people who don't have a new updated version of Photoshop, they won't have that option. So I'm just going to show you with the channel mixer for now. I believe it's just Photoshop CS and higher. So I'm just going to show you using the channel mixer. So that looks about right. Okay, I'm going to close this menu. So now I have the channel mixer on a duplicated layer, and I have my color layer underneath it still. So I'm happy with how the black and white looks, but now you'll see here one of the things I do to get this tonal range but with the color beneath it is I'm actually going to change the blending mode here. So right now it's on normal with an opacity of 100%. So if I change the blending mode around, I can get a whole bunch of different techniques that all look different. So what I do is I usually just play around with them until I get something cool. For this, usually soft light works the best. And you can see right now, as soon as I click soft light, I have a really big boost in the contrast range, and it just looks really metallic and really cool. Let me just turn this on and off here. So you can see where the black and white is affecting it. And I can even go back into the channel mixer and play around with these sliders and fine tune it, all in real time. So that looks about perfect to me. And in my opinion, these colors are a little bit strong still. So what I want to do is I want to take down this opacity so it's not as strong. So maybe I'll drop it to around maybe 80%. So I think this is looking pretty close to how I want it. The tonal range is there and it looks very metallic. I just feel like, for my taste, there's a little bit too much color. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down here and make another adjustment layer and put it back on channel mixer again. And then I'm going to click monochrome just so I get a fully black and white image again. So I'm just going to take the opacity here and turn it down until I'm happy with the color. So what this is doing is bringing this channel mixer, which is fully black and white, and on a normal blending mode, what that's doing is it's just bringing it into the mix a little bit, and it's affecting the colors and making everything a little bit more desaturated now. So that looks good there to my eye. So I'm just going to take you through step by step here again. I started with the background image, and then I made a channel mixer adjustment layer to a nice black and white contrasty image that I liked. Okay, and that's this here on the top. And then I changed the blending mode to soft light, and that changes how this black and white adjustment layer blended with the image below it. And then I felt that it was too colorful, so I made another channel mixer layer below this one on normal blending mode, and just turn the opacity up around 40% just to fade the colors a little bit. So let me just turn these on and off one at a time here. So there's the base image, there's the image a little bit desaturated, and here's the image with that nice channel mixer on soft light. And I really love this effect. It's one of my favorite things to do, both to my personal work and my commercial work. I'm going to show you one more example using a close-up of a portrait using the black and white to color technique. Now, that works good a lot for big wide shots where you see a lot of the background and the environment, but it can really mess up a portrait. So this is a portrait that I took of a monk in the north of Ethiopia in Tigray province. And he has a really interesting face, really nice guy, really interesting guy. And this is the picture that I took of him straight from the camera, with me, of course, converting it from the raw file. So I'm pretty happy with it as it is. So I don't want to use the black and white technique and destroy the picture too much and make it look too edited or too cheesy. So I'm just going to add my techniques just a little tiny bit. So what I'm going to do is just repeat the same steps that I did. Is I'm going to go ahead and channel mix it first. I'm going to turn down the red and up the blue. Okay, that looks good. Now I just noticed one slight problem here when I did that, when I upped the blue, is you see this white here down in his cloak. It is white and it's supposed to be bright, but it did get a little bit blown out. And if I do take this down a few notches, it's no longer blown out, but his face is not in exposure anymore. So what I can do is I can do the obvious conversion. Oh, I'm losing a little bit of detail on his hat here too. So what I can do is I can do this conversion, that's fine. And what I can do is from the background layer, again the color layer, I can make yet another conversion. So I'm going to turn off the first channel mixer that I made, and I'm going to make another conversion from the background layer. Another adjustment layer here, and this one I'm going to go a little bit easier on the cloak, and I'm not going to worry about the rest of the image. So there you have it. So now the cloak is still white, but it's not blown out. Okay, I'm going to close this menu, and then I'm going to turn back on that top layer again with the channel mixer. Now you notice when I make an adjustment layer, it already comes with a layer mask here, this little white box. So what that means is when I paint black into this white box, it's going to expose whatever is underneath it. And in that case, it's the other layer that we just made with the less contrasty conversion. So when I turn that on, click the layer mask, get a brush tool out, and pick the right size brush. I'm just going to kind of slowly paint over that white area, and you can see that it's exposing that layer beneath it. On my other DVD tutorials, I was kind of notorious for using the eraser tool too much, and I'm just going to admit that right now, like, that was an obvious mistake on my part, and it's, you know, it's a little faster to use the eraser tool, but you can't go back if you made a mistake. So now I do use layer mask quite a bit, and let's say I did paint and screw up a little bit more, like on his beard here, then you can always paint, switch to white and paint back, and that will recover what you painted over initially. So I'm going to go back to black and just kind of paint over the blown out areas just so I can get one kind of black and white image that's a mix of those two different channel mixer conversions. Okay, that looks pretty good to me. Okay, Okay, so what I'll do now is just like the previous example that I gave you. I'm going to leave this top layer on soft light here. Okay, and then the bottom layer I'm going to leave on normal, and I'm just going to decrease that and decrease the opacity, and then I'm going to go back to this top layer and decrease that as well until it looks about right. So I'm just going to play around with both of these sliders until, to my eye, his skin tone is popping out just a little bit more. See there, to me it looks a bit too colorful. I like more desaturated looks. But I don't want to overkill it on this shot just because it's a close-up of a face. Okay, I think that looks a little bit better than the original, but I can just check by clicking these eyes off here. So okay, so here's the original picture, a little bit desaturated, and a little bit of the metallic contrast boost on top. I think it could just do with a little bit less desaturation, maybe right around there. I'm really nitpicky, and then that looks good. And I'm just going to flatten the image, and then I'm done with it.